Greetings from Phoenix, Arizona and the Valley of the Sun. I can't even start the intro without FSD making a mistake. We're going the wrong way in the traffic circle, even though the pavement is clearly marked. Welcome! Old Guy in a Tesla here, and today we're leaving downtown Phoenix and heading to the Whole Foods Market at Camelback and 20th Street. It's about a 20-minute trip, and it's a nice test drive because it mixes plenty of city streets and highways. We're on firmware version 2024.21.5, which is full self-driving 12.5.1.1. You can see there's a little hesitation in the right turn here. It starts to creep out but then stops. You can see it in the steering wheel. Admittedly, there's a blind spot for traffic coming from the left as there is a lot of parked cars on the street. Using this route and a couple of others is standardized driving tests to document and highlight progress made on full self-driving. I will be doing this each time a new software version is released so you can see any differences in the software's ability to smooth out the easy driving and how it handles the more complex situations. So for example, when we left from the driveway, it went the wrong way around the traffic circle, which is weird because it clearly shows the arrows on the pavement and the way the traffic is supposed to flow. The assumption is subsequent releases of the software will get better at things like this, and you'll be able to see those improvements here. I am a big fan of the full self-driving concept and technology in general. We bought full self-driving on our 2018 Tesla Model 3, but in July we traded that in for this 2024 Tesla Model Y. Coming up to this intersection, it's clearly marked as a no turn on red. There's a sign on our side of the street as well as the one across the street. I've heard that Tesla Vision doesn't read these, tell that to the speed limit signs, but I would think things like this would be in the nav system's metadata. Regardless, it runs the red light, and that's one thing to keep in mind. If there's an accident or you get caught, you are at fault for not controlling the vehicle. My goal is not to touch the controls throughout the entire drive. Just let it do its thing and only intervene when there's going to be a problem. As you can see, we're getting on the I-10, and as we go around this curve here, you can see there's a guy in a wheelchair, but the car doesn't slow down for him. It does in fact slow down here at the transition, or better yet, it really doesn't pick up speed as quickly as a human driver would. But eventually it does start to pick up speed as it gets on the highway, which is not to be confused with speeding up the recording just to cut out the boring parts. Now this is something the car does exactly what a human driver should do. The Deck Park Tunnel in downtown Phoenix is always a mess. This is 10 a.m. on a weekday. We get stuck behind this bus, and even though we need to be in this lane in about 1.5 miles, we should try to get as far over to the left as we can, and then try to get back into this lane farther down the road. It's hard to tell what the traffic's going to be like when we need to get back over, but because of all the merging, it's better to be out of these right-hand lanes. And as you can see, the traffic does let up, and the car does a fine job finding space and getting over so we can head up the 51. We'll speed up this clip a little bit just to get by this. Here we see 3 separate highways converging together. The westbound I-10 on our left, the eastbound I-10, which we were on, and the 202 on our right. The car handles all of this very nicely. Again, none of the controls have been touched, and it smoothly merges onto the 51. Eventually, the car changes out of the right-hand lane, which it should be doing. By the way, the 51 is a simple highway that starts in downtown at the 10 and ends at the 101 about 20 minutes north. It's one of the few highways in Phoenix that has a start and an end. All the rest, like the 101, are loops, or like the I-10, which just passes through Phoenix between Tucson to the east and Los Angeles to the west. Admittedly, it's a little nerve-wracking watching folks merge on and off the highway without controlling, in air quotes, the vehicle, but this is a brave new world we're living in. As we get closer to our exit, the car starts the lane change, which in my opinion is a little slow. It took about 10 seconds to start changing lanes. There are no cars around, and once it turns on its turn signal, it should just switch lanes. This light coming up, we're going to want to turn right. It's a pretty complicated intersection with 4 lanes in 3 directions. There are 2 turning lanes, and we're on the inside right lane, so typically there would be cars and a barrier to block the view from the left. Fortunately, the light turns green, and it does a nice job making the right turn. The acceleration from that turn is more than is necessary, so hopefully that gets smoothed out in the future. The smoothness of this left turn is truly amazing. It inches into the intersection following the truck, and then it waits to see if there's more traffic. There are several more cars, but it does find an opening when that red SUV makes a right-hand turn. Previous versions of full self-driving would have waited until the SUV had completed the turn, and it was clear that the other car down the road wasn't going to continue to the light. Now it actually starts the turn once the SUV is turning. It doesn't wait. That's clearly the 12.5 integration at work. This I really don't understand. It's even correct on the nav system. The car turns up the wrong aisle. This is an aisle you would come down the other way, and it's very clearly marked on the road and the map. It should have gone over to the next row. And that's a wrap. As shown on the screen, there were a number of issues, but no interventions. Mostly annoyances, but there were a couple that were more serious. In summary, a very good driving test for this version. There's been a lot of recent progress in the development of full self-driving. In subsequent weeks, we'll have comparison scores for each drive, and that will provide a good indication on progress, hopefully. Feedback is great, so anything constructive will be appreciated. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.